Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Whitney and I just decided that I wanted to show everyone makeup and I wanted to talk about something interesting while I did it. Actually, inspiration for this comes from Bailey Sarian. She talks about murder and mystery while she does her makeup, and I just decided why not find another topic to talk about as well, although I love murder and mystery as well. So I'm going to talk about a different woman in history who was an overall badass and did great things, whether it be for children or other people, or saved a lot of people. So that's what I'm going to talk about with you today. So the person we're talking about today is also, I know these clips are very attractive, but I have to set them back somehow, so because you gotta get that out of the face, so just ignore that. I don't know, we'll see. So today I'm going to be talking about Irena Stanislawa Sendler, and she actually went by Sendlerawa, but most of the articles say like Sendler, so I'm gonna call her Irena Sendler. Also, like, all the products I use will be listed and linked in the, might not be linked, but they'll be listed in the description box below. We'll see if I link them or not, if I can find them all. Some of them are from like who knows when, and I probably won't list brushes because I don't know where they're all from. So Irena Sendler was born February 15th, 1910. She had a lot to do with helping with Polish Jews during the World War II. And she was born on February 15th, 1910 to Stanislaw and Janina Krzyzanowski. I'm gonna butcher a lot of names, like I don't know Polish names, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna try my best. Her father was a physician who helped with help the poor people of their community, and the Jewish, because the Jewish people were like pretty oppressed even at this point, which was many years prior to World War II. So her father helped them free of charge. So that is what he chose to do with his, his line of work. Was he was a physician who helped people, which is where she probably got, a lot of hers. Her father actually ended up dying in 1917 of typhus, which he actually ended up contracting from one of his patients, who he helped in one of the communities. And so she actually grew up in Otwock, which is about 15 miles southeast of Warsaw. And she studied law for 2 years and then actually switched to Polish literature at the University of Warsaw. And from what I could find, she actually never graduated. She finished her her thesis and stuff, but she never took her final exam. So from what I could find, she never got her degree, which whatever, she didn't need it. She was very opposed to the ghetto benches in the universities, which at that time was a form of segregation, much like here. But basically it just didn't allow the Jewish students had to sit on the left-hand side of the lecture halls. So basically just did not allow them to sit anywhere but there. And actually Irena was so against this that she ended up like defacing her non-Jewish identification on her grade card, and like by doing that she was at risk of like being expelled, getting her grades affected, because she was doing things that like weren't really allowed. Like it was very leftist views and like definitely not allowed in that time. And okay, I've got to get some primer on my eye and get going with this, or I'm gonna be here forever. So I'm just gonna quickly do my primer and get started with my makeup. She joined the Union of the Polish Democratic Youth in 1928. So that was just a political party at the time. And she also became a member of the Polish Socialist Party during the war. So just someone who oppressed like people who were doing the bad things, like, that we all know, that I'm not going to get into right now, because that's what this video is about, but that's also not what this video is about. Like, we're not going to talk a lot about the Nazi regime and stuff, even though this all happened during that time, but like, that's not her story. She did much better things than the Nazi regime, and I feel like she needs to be talked about more. So she actually couldn't find employment in the Warsaw public schools because she had such leftist views that they like weren't supportive of them. And so she never was able to get into the school system, even though that's kind of what she went for. Like, she should have been working in a school system, but she never became part of it because of her leftist views. So she belonged to a group of social workers led by Professor Helena Rydlinski, which worked to rescue the Jews during the war. So she actually became a social worker, and she did that for a big part of her life, prior to the war and then even after the war and everything. So she, that's kind of what she devoted her life to, was being a social worker and helping others. Before the war, she worked with many unwed mothers and children who were born out of wedlock, because at the time, as was everywhere, they weren't seen as like people that were worth helping and stuff like that. She married a man named Irena Sendler in 1931. He went to war and was actually captured in September 1939, and he remained in the German prisoner of war camp until 1945, and they actually divorced in 1947. So he, she didn't have him all through the war, and then when he got back, they ended up getting a divorce. And she then married Stefan, a word I can't say. I want to say it's like Gremsky or something, but he was actually born Adam Selnikier. He was a Jewish friend and wartime companion. So the reason why he had a different name is because he was one of those who went into hiding during the war, and so he couldn't have a Jewish name. He had to get a Polish name, And then they actually had 3 children: Janina, Andrzej, I think, who died in infancy, and Adam, who died in 1999. And I'll call him Stefan because I can't say his last name. But he left the family, and Irena actually ended up remarrying her first husband, but they divorced 10 years later. Anyways, after the German invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, they ordered the Jews to be removed from the staff of the Municipal Social Welfare Department, which is where Sendler worked. So all of her Jewish friends that she had were removed from the staff of the place she was working at, and like that just didn't sit well with her. They also barred the department from assisting this Jewish citizen. So a lot of the people that Sendler had currently been like assisting, whether it be like legally or on the side or like doing it under the table, she no longer, like, it was punishable by law. So she was not okay with that. She was like, no, these are my Jewish friends. Like, I don't want to not, see them and help them and all that. Her and her colleagues became involved in helping the wounded and the sick Polish soldiers. And actually, while they helped the Polish soldiers, they would also help like the Jewish people as well, who they like kind of hid among the soldiers. And to do that, they ended up issuing false medical documents. These people needed this to obtain the aid for being injured in the war and stuff like that. She also did this for her Jewish charges, who couldn't be served by anyone but the Jewish community institutions. So all of her friends that I had mentioned earlier that she had, no longer been able to help, she ended up helping them through doing this false medical document so they could get the aid they needed, even though they technically weren't really allowed to help them. Also, I'm gonna go super simple on the eye look today. Like, I can't focus on much at once, so this is very trying for me doing both of these at the same time. So we're gonna go real simple. 3 other people, so Irene Schultz, Jadwiga Petrowski, and Jadwiga Salik Daneko. So they both have the same first name, but we don't really mention them again. I don't mention them again. I mean, they were mentioned in the article. When I talk about her and her colleagues, these are the 3 people I'm mainly talking about because they're the 3 who had like the most to do with what was going on. They created false references and schemes to help the Jewish families and the children who couldn't get the protection that they needed. So some 400,000 Jews were crowded into the Warsaw Ghetto. We learned about this in history class, like, I know we did, but I'm gonna be 1,075% honest with you. My education, this is gonna sound awful because I'm college educated, like I should not have to look this shit up, but clearly I failed somewhere in my education and I didn't really know what the Warsaw Ghetto was. I mean, I knew they had ghettos in the, you know, during the World War II where they would put like the Jewish people, but like apparently the Warsaw Ghetto was like a pretty important one just because it had so many Jewish people in it, and it was so, it was awful. I mean, it was awful for them to live in. For more info on that, you can, you know, Google it or open a history book, which is what I should do apparently, because I had to Google it, and I just feel like my history teacher is like shaking his head right now. Granted, I don't even know if he's still a history teacher. So the area was sealed in November of 1940, meaning nobody but German soldiers could enter in and out. However, Sendler and Schultz, they actually gained access because of their status in social welfare. So they were able to sneak in, and not sneak in, but they were able to like get into the ghettos and help out the people there, you know, with things like getting food and clothing and cleanliness items, medication, all the things that the Jews weren't actually allowed to have in the ghettos because, like, you know, we don't want to help them, we don't want to give them good things because obviously, you know, this is not me saying this. This is the Germans saying like, we don't like them, we think they're bad, and we aren't going to help them because it would be. So they also were assigned to look for signs of typhus, which is what her father died of, if you don't recall me saying that earlier. And the reason to look for a sign of typhus was not by any means to make sure the Jews stayed healthy or weren't getting sick or anything like that. It was actually to make sure it didn't spread outside of their ghettos, because it was such a contagious thing that they just didn't want it to spread to like the German soldiers who were like policing the ghettos. And so, you know, you think they're like looking out for the health of them, and then really it's like, psych, we actually just don't want to get it. So, you know, make sure they don't have it, so that, not to save them, you know, if they have it, just let them die, but like, make sure it's not going to spread to us, because heaven forbid we get sick, you know? So anyways, they brought in things that weren't allowed and did all that stuff that I mentioned earlier. So she had a lot of friends, and like I mentioned earlier, she worked in the social welfare department in Warsaw. She had a lot of friends who she had worked with before, and they, you know, they lost their jobs at the social welfare, and, you know, they couldn't work anymore because of this order that they were put under, that they had to go live in these ghettos. And so she had a lot of friends on the other side of the ghettos, actually. And so it was really hard for her to see her friends on the other side. And so that's why she was really big into helping. Also, I don't know how I like this eye look, but you know what? We're halfway there, so we're gonna keep going, ladies and gentlemen. You never know what an eye look's gonna look like until you put mascara on it. Am I right, friends? Am I right? The answer is yes, I'm right. Like, don't come at me. Like, eye looks don't look good until you put lashes or mascara on top of them. I don't care what anybody says. Also, sorry, that was very loud. I'm apparently a little riled up. Probably because the story just, it's great, but like, just thinking about the time back then is just awful. Like, nobody deserved to be treated that way. It was just terrible. So back to the story. Her future husband, actually, Adam/Stefan, didn't leave until the liquidation of the ghetto in 1942, which, if you also open a history book or look this up, which, mind you, I had to look it up. So this liquidation, like, most of the people who were liquidated from the Warsaw Ghetto, like, they didn't get to just like leave and like live. Like, a lot of them were like liquidated and then taken to concentration camps or disposed of. Sendler and the others would help the Jews who escaped and arrange for smuggling out babies and small children. In many ways, It doesn't specifically, the article I read, which I don't know if I already mentioned this, but I got all my info off of Wikipedia. I need a drink, all this talking. It's just, you'd think I'd be used to it. I'm a big talker. I love talking. I haven't done a lot of talking this week though, because I've been home alone with 3 cats. And I don't know if any of you out there have cats, but cats don't talk, you know? They really don't talk. They meow a lot, and so if you hear a meow, it was a cat. When the ghettos were liquidated, like I mentioned earlier, it was called the Great Action, or the Time of Great Action. There's a Polish word for it too. During that time, she helped smuggle out these babies and small children using various means. Again, what I read didn't say exactly how she did. Like, I've heard places that they did it in like toolboxes and things like that, but I'm not gonna say because I don't honestly know. Which this became very urgent prior to the Great Action because these children and everybody were getting sent away to concentration camps, which we all know most did not come out alive from them. She continued her work and like she didn't like shy away from it when it became more dangerous. Like, she just was an amazing lady who did not shy away from danger and was like, oh, you need more help? Like, I got you. I will help you. I'm here. Tell me what I can do. Like, how many more kids can I save? That's what I'm here for, you know? As of October 1941, giving any assistance to the Jews of Poland was punishable by the death of the person as well as their whole household. So what she was doing was punishable by death. She was known in her socialist parties as the name of Clara because they didn't go by their actual names, because obviously, like, don't want to do that, because if you do that and you get, you know, then they can find you easier. But if you just have a name that's not traceable to anything, then you're like a spy. Which, I mean, I guess technically she was a spy. I mean, she was doing things, so I would call her a spy. Yeah, she's a spy. We're gonna call her a spy. So her duties were searching for places to stay, issuing fake documents. So she was, oh, look at that color. Oh man, did that make it better or worse? Worse. This is not a good representation of me. Like, my makeup is not usually, but we're gonna turn it around. We're gonna turn it around and we're gonna make it look good. It's because I'm not focusing. I'm just grabbing random colors and just hoping for the best. But you know what? It's not turning into anything too bad. It's just this up here that I can't get to blend out. But whatever, we'll just keep blending. If you just keep blending, like, you'll figure your life out, right? Like, blend, 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 and then your life is, I wish that worked for every part of your life. Anyways, back to our amazing lady, because you don't want to hear me talk about myself, because that's not why you're here. This wonderful lady wore, this is like the ultimate like you to all the Germans and people in Poland who are bad. She wore a Star of David, even though she wasn't Jewish, as her sign of solidarity with the Jewish people she was helping. Like, my heart can't handle that. It's just too sweet. Like, who does that? Like, this lady does that too. Ooh, that is a beautiful color. Like, if you don't have this palette, actually I don't think you can still get it, so don't get it, but it's beautiful. When the ghetto was liquidated, she and her colleagues took small numbers of children. Because of the lack of funds, like, they obviously, like, they had to have funds to get these children out of Poland and out of, like, the ghetto and stuff. Like, the money just didn't come from, like, you had to have money. It just didn't come from anywhere, you know? So because of that, they actually weren't able to save near as many children as I'm sure they would have loved to. You know, if, like, money had been not an issue, I'm sure Irena would have saved many, many, many more children. So she actually decided, like, because she could make this decision because she was the one, like, doing it. Like, sorry, if you're not doing it, you don't get to make this decision. So she decided that she was gonna save the children who were, like, the neediest, like the ones who didn't have families, so orphans and children like that who really needed the help, whereas some people thought you should save the most, you know, the distinguished, the rich one. That was her view, like, let's save the people who are the neediest, like the ones who in the ghetto don't even have families, like let's save them. And then she began working for Zagata, which was an underground organization, but like obviously they had more money, so she just distributed the money grants to those who were assisting in hiding the Jews. So all the people who were, you know, like send them our way, like we'll help, like that's what we're here for, you know. Also, yes, I put SPF on. Can't forget SPF, even though I'm not going outside. Probably not anyways. We'll see. We will see. When you're quarantining, you don't get to go outside. Just kidding. Like you can still go outside, but according to her coworkers that she had at these, like the Zagata, and then I think she was still working as like an actual social worker at this time. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but she was the most active in saving the Jewish children, which is why like today, like her name is the name we know. That's because she was the most active. They placed the children in orphanages led by the Roman Catholics. Many of the nun convents were where the children were sent because they were taken care of there. Like they knew, like, these people are going to take care of them. You know, they're great people. They're people who devote their lives to the Lord. Like, granted, that doesn't always mean you're a great person, but they knew these people were good people. So they were saved and placed in these orphanage, and they were given Christian names because obviously, like, if they still had their Jewish names, like, well, you're going to find them right away. You're going to be like, why do you have a Jewish name? Like, clearly you're clearly you're Jewish if you have a Jewish name. Not necessarily back then. Now, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have Jewish names who are not Jewish in any way, shape, or form. And also, so that even if they were tested by like the guards or like by like Gestapo, I think it was called, yeah. If they were tested by them, they needed to know like Roman Catholic. I mean, yeah, they needed to know the prayers too. So they were also taught like, these are the prayers that we pray, because otherwise they're going to be like, you grew up a Christian but you don't know any of these answers, like what? Nowadays that wouldn't be so weird, but back then, like, I feel like if you were Christian you learned all the prayers and stuff, you know. So she obviously didn't want to completely throw away their Jewish heritage, because like it wasn't their choice in any way, shape, or form to do anything that was happening to them, right? Like these children were just kind of along for the ride. She actually took really, really, really good documentation of these children. She like wrote down their Jewish names. She wrote down the Christian name that she ended up giving them. And actually, if the house was searched and like, because it also had their locations, like where they had been taken. So she didn't want, if her house was searched, if she was captured for any reason, she didn't want these names to be just out in the open. So they actually would bury them in the backyard in jars. Like they would bury them in her backyard in these jars so that like hopefully after the war they could come back and find them and then reunite the children with their parents, because that was the overall goal. You know, like the goal was not necessarily to leave these children with in these orphanages forever, right? Like the overall goal was to get them back to their parents, you know, at the end of the war, whether their parents survived or not. According to Deborah Dork, which if I remember right, she was a historian. Sendler was the inspiration and prime mover of the network that saved the Jewish children. So she was the one behind like the whole thing. Like she was like, this is my job. This is what I'm gonna do during this terrible time in my life. Like this is what I can do, is I can save Jewish children. Now comes a little bit of a scary part. So on October 18th, 1943, the thing we were all waiting for to happen, because when you do illegal things, you're at risk of being arrested. So the Gestapo arrested her. I'm sure you're thinking, but wait, Whitney, are you really gonna tell us about somebody who was killed? I don't know, we'll see. We'll see where the story goes. While they were in the house searching, while the Gestapo were in the house searching, because obviously like if you arrest somebody, you're gonna search their house, because clearly you think they are doing illegal activity, or you have proof. So while they were searching, there was a list of like the current children that were being hidden, like one that hadn't been like hidden in the ground yet, because like obviously she didn't hide them and then go pull them out every time she needed them. So these, I assume, were like a current list of children that were currently in the process of being hidden. She's like, oh shit, like they can't find this. If they find this, we're done. We're done for. All these children are gonna get found. Like every child who we've hidden is going to be found. Not good. We can't have this happen, right? So she throws it to her friend, this list, which, go you, girl. Like, throw it to your friend. She throws it to her friend, and her friend catches it, obviously, and puts it in her clothes, which are like loose, I guess. Like, I don't know if Irena didn't have loose clothes, or like if her friend wasn't being arrested, or what the, you know, what the case was here. I'm not entirely sure. But they never searched this friend of hers, this Janina Grabowski. They never searched her, so they never like found this list. Like, thank God, right? She was transferred to a prison, and then you know, was gonna be executed by firing squad. She was beaten, interrogated, like terrible things, like very brutally, but she never ever betrayed any of the children or the comrades she had worked with. Like, she never gave anybody up. So she was sent for execution by firing squad. She was being taken to a different prison on like January 20th. That was an estimated date. No one really had an actual date, but she was taken to go get executed. And the people who were transporting her were actually like, the guards were bribed, and she was released. So she didn't get executed. And the person who bribed the guards was Maria Pallister, and she worked with Zagata also. She was meant to do way more in the war, and she was actually given permission to go back to the welfare department, which is where she was living at the time, but she just didn't really feel like that was the best place for her at the time, because one, like, she still was at risk of being taken by the Gestapo, right? If someone found out she escaped, like, they were gonna take her back. Like, she was not in the clear by any means. So she was still at risk, and so she was still hiding under Clara Dabrowska as a nurse. That's what she was pretending to be. I mean, she was still working and all the stuff she had been doing prior. She was still doing all that, but she just had like a fake name. By December of 1943, which, remember, she was arrested in October of 1943. So she was still, I think she was still in jail. Like I said, that date wasn't like fully, there was no actual date. So it was a little confusing. But by December of 1943, she was already trying to save children again, even though she was like in jail / just got out of jail. Like, she was like, no, this is my duty, this is my job. If I'm not going to be executed, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before. So during the Warsaw Uprising, which, again, if you want to know more about that, you might have to Google it / open a history book, because I don't know anything about it. All I know is that it was in Warsaw, and it was an uprising, because that's what it says, Warsaw Uprising. So during the Warsaw Uprising, she worked as a nurse treating the Germans, and then also, like, in the same place that they were treating the Germans, they hid Jews that needed to be treated too during the uprising. She helped, and she's actually injured or wounded by a German deserter while she was searching for food. So I'm assuming like food was scarce at the time or something. I'm not entirely sure why she was searching for food. I'm sure there was a great reason why she was searching for food / a poor reason why she was searching for food. She organized the hospital run by Zagata to become the Warsaw Children's Home. So after like the war was over and everything, obviously like this Zagata organization was no longer, like, they didn't get money anymore. They didn't need to help people anymore. Well, they didn't need to help for the reason they were helping, so they like kind of dispersed. She changed that hospital that they had been working in. She changed it to a children's home, and she became the department head of the social welfare in Warsaw's municipal government in December of 1945. So she continued to work as a social worker, I believe, up until like the day she got, I don't know, sick. It didn't say how she died, so I assume she did it until she couldn't anymore. Remember the records I was talking about that they had hid in the backyard to be able to give to the children, or to be able to hopefully get the children back to their homes. She passed those records on to Zagata to try to find, you know, the children's parents that hopefully had survived the war, but sadly, most of the parents did not make it out of the concentration camps. She had of these 6 decorations that she was awarded, like, I think war decoration. One of the ones she was given was the Golden Cross of Merit for her wartime saving of Jews. So she was rewarded for her amazing efforts. I think that she needs to be talked about more, but she definitely was like recognized for all the great things she did during the war. And she died on May 12th, 2008 at the age of 98. That's a long time to live. Like, if I live to just be 90, I'm gonna be happy, but 98? Holy crap. I just think we should know more about her. I didn't even know her name prior to, you know, looking her up. I just think it's such an important part of history, and it's such a dark time in history that we all talk about, you know, the dark parts of it, but we don't talk about the wonderful people who, you know, did some great things saving people and stuff. So that's kind of why I'm here today, because I want to talk about people in history, even the dark parts of history, who did great things and didn't just give in. For those of you who don't know me, I have 3 cats who are very needy, and one of which is this one that's down here at my feet right now, trying to jump up on my makeup counter, and I'm just like, girlfriend, I'm almost finished. Let me do this, and then I'll come play with you. I work as a nanny full-time. I take care of 1 little girl. I love what I do. I've worked in childcare for many years. I'm gonna be honest here. I think, you know, in 20 years, when we look back at the time we're currently living in, we might say it was a pretty dark time for a lot of people. And I feel like we just need to keep that in mind. So thank you for joining me today. This is the finished look. Again, all products will be listed down below. And thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad to continue this series. If you have any suggestions for somebody I should do next, somebody who you think is a badass woman in history, let me know, and I will gladly do that for you. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.